Greetings everyone, Tactical Lich here, and today we are back to Total War Warhammer 2 online multiplayer, featuring High Elves led by Doomsage, their opponent the Lizardmen led by RTK called HR. In the front line for the High Elves led by Doomsage, who also sent in this replay, we have a bunch of White Lions of Shreds. At the back we have some Lothern Sea God with shields providing that focus fire to shoot down dinos and whatnot. And at the back, the Pure Main Company, an elite band of high elf warriors with Guardian providing extra physical resistance to characters as well as Sunder armor to hack down giant armored monsters and allow the Lothern Sea God, who doesn't have a lot of AP missiles, to shoot up their enemies better. And at the back, we have the Dragon Princess supported by the Mage of Life with only regrowth, and also far in the flanks, actually they have already retreated back to this flank, we have the Fireborn supported by a Noble and Emmerich. As for the Lizardman player, who has already started to harass the High Elves with their Pterodon Javelin Riders, throwing some javelins into these White Lions, who fortunately have that Lion's Pelt, Lion Cloak, to provide that missile resistance. They have 4 Pterodon Riders in the skies, and one of them the Regiment of Renown, Polhawk Sentinels. As for the main forces, the main infantry blob, we have a tough box of Star Chamber Guardians, Temple Guards, as well as the Saurus Spears, surrounding a bunch of Bastillodon with Solar Engine, as well as a Slaa Mage Priest of Light. So, triple laser beams, 2 of them the Solar Laser Beams, and 1 of them the Winds of Magic Heesh Light Laser Beams, the Burning Gaze of Shim. Yep, Shim's Burning Gaze. Basically, providing a lot of that single entity sniping power, as well as the Time Warp and the Net of Ammontok, supporting the army without healing, but still, a great supporting lore, the Light of Magic. Now, the battle has been commenced in this flank on the High Elf side, where the Pterodon Riders have been shooting up some of these Lothern Sea God, possibly dropping some rocks onto them as well, but the slack of micro over here in the Pterodon Riders allow them to be focused down by multiple Lothern Sea God units. Now, some rocks are being dropped onto the Pure Main Company, which is a great choice because of their armor sundering, as well as the Guardian ability, providing that physical resistance to Emmerich and other High Elf characters. That means that the Pure Main Company will be supporting the single entity fight and also shutting down some of these armored dinosaur power. Definitely making focusing down these elite infantry a priority for the Lizardman player. Dropped rocks, javelin fire from the Polhawk Sentinels as well as Pterodon Riders would be key, especially the Pure Main Company now debuffed by the armor sundering rock drops of Polhawk Sentinels. The javelins are now able to do more damage onto the Pure Main Company, forcing out an early regrowth on this tattered Regiment of Renown White Lions of Shreds. Now, as for the Lizardman player, they are just sitting back using those laser beams to beam down all these White Lions. White Lions, despite being a mid-tier infantry with armor piercing, I do consider them to be a rather mediocre unit. With the common problem of High Elves having low HP, their melee stats are mediocre, and on top of that, they don't have the best leadership as they do not have immune to psychology. Even up against Saurus, they still struggle to recover their own cost. They won't actually do too much damage, and now let alone fighting the most elite of Temple God, the Star Chamber Guardians with Regiment of Renown melee stats, and also a bunch of Bastillodon charging in, terror routing all these White Lions. They are just broken from this engagement. At the back, the Fireborn, who are now circling around the battlefield hoping to find an opening in the backlines, are not having a great time here, being shot up by all these Pterodon Riders as well as the Blood Statuette of... okay, I forgot the name of it, but basically the Blood Statuette, direct magic damage from the Slaa Mage Priest of Light. They have taken some noticeable damage, no models down just yet, but still the HP damage is significant, and now they are starting to lose models as the Saurus Spears are now pushing them back, using those anti-large attacks to drop them to around half health. And unfortunately, Saurus Spears with decent mass will be able to pin down some of these Fireborn, and also some of the Star Chamber Guardians rolling into the mix as well, dragging down a few more models. In the front line, a banishment went down, destroying some of the White Lions units, also doing some friendly fire to the Temple Guards, and at the same time sniping the Mage of Life with a Shim's Burning Gaze, and now routing the Chariot Mage. While at the back, the Lothern Sea God will be continuously firing into the blob, but unfortunately they are not exactly in the greatest formation. Only the front part of the unit is in range and beginning to shoot into the fray, and half of the unit's ammo are wasted at the back, which is rather unfortunate because they do need a lot of this missile fire support for the High Elf army here, as the Fireborn now able to pin down the Slant Mage, but surrounded by all these Saurus Spears. They are now being dragged down to half health despite eating a regrowth, and now they will be slowly being surrounded, destroyed by multiple infantry blob before bringing down the Slant Mage Priest of Light. Although the Slant Mage before going down dropped in another Shim's Burning Gaze, hitting this Mage of Light, squeezing out the last bit of value and Winds of Magic with this one final spell. While at the back, the Lothern Sea God are rotating to fire into this blob as the Bastillodon are now being surrounded by multiple anti-large single entities, Imric and the Noble. On a horse, they are just dumpstering this monster despite the support of the Star Chamber Guardians. Some remaining White Lions of Thrace are still fighting, earning only 200 value against the Temple Gods, the most elite defenders of Lustria. An absolutely terrible trade for them. And this is rather expected. Now some pure main company charging into the fray as well, earning back around 500 value from the rather poor engagement, but considering that they took like around half the unit's HP health damage due to all those missiles, it is a pretty decent performance of this unit. And now providing that physical resistance, not that it would do any help against the Star Chamber Guardians, but at least the regular Temple Guard cannot hit Imric as hard. But now with Imric retreating from combat to chase down all these Bastillodon, the pure main company left alone in combat against double Saurus Temple Gods, they will be shut down and soon will be routed. Although thankfully for them, the Fireborn are now charging into the rear of these Star Chamber Guardians and Temple Gods, dishing out some impact damage, but unfortunately there are some Saurus Spears pulling in, and the Fireborn will once again be surrounded. Regardless of the regrowth, they will be doomed as they are unable to pull out from all these heavy infantry. Now in the skies, we have the Pterodon Riders still roaming the skies, but they are unable to shut down all these Lothern Sea God as most of them are still very healthy. They are charging in, trying to shut down this firepower, using their lives as a sacrifice, just so the missile fire would not be shooting into the Saurus infantry blob. At the back, Imric and the Noble have successfully dispatched the Bastillodons, both of them dead on the battlefield, but unfortunately for them, there are still a lot of Temple Gods, one of them forgotten after chased off some routing units left behind the forest. While the High Elf units are dwindling, the Lothern Sea God are being distracted, unable to fire, and now with the Saurus infantry charging in, dragging all these missile units into combat, the High Elves simply do not have any means to pull back this game. If they have something say like a $1 below the armor piercing AoE damage, maybe, but unfortunately today the Live Mage only brought a regrowth and she is nowhere to be found as well, as she is now routed, and with all these Saurus surrounding this High Elf blob of infantry, not even Imric and the Fireborn and the Noble can pull back this game. So let us quickly fast forward as the last of the High Elves in their valiant last stand are now being crushed by the Saurus, the Temple Gods, who are superior to them in both numbers and quality. Now that we are at the post-battle screen, just want to say a big thanks to Doomsage for sending in this replay. Both players put up a great fight, but unfortunately, for the High Elf side, the White Lions are just not doing too much here. None of them earning back their own value, not even the pure main company, who is supposed to be the elite unit. That's most likely because of the bombardment, the crossfire, all those javelins, laser beams from the Bastillodon, as well as the drop rocks. They just wrecked all these White Lions who doesn't have the best melee stats to begin with, and on top of that, due to the HP damage, they lost their martial prowess early, losing a huge chunk of melee defense and a small bit of melee attack, making them having much worse performance in terms of combat. And due to their High Elf nature having less HP than other units in general, they just can't hold the fight long enough. As for the other units, we have the Lothern Sea God actually earning back their value quite a bit with all those missile fire, shooting up all the Pterodon Riders, as well as the Slant Mage Priest of Light. The focus fire does do a lot of damage against the low armor of the Slant Mage Priest, And as for the Dragon Princes, this one not doing too much here, as there are no good targets for them to charge. They can charge the Saurus Spears and Temple Gods, but all of them are anti-large. Even if they charge into the Bastillodon with Solar Engine, the heavy armor of Bastillodon will mitigate most of their charge damage due to their lack of armor piercing. As for the Fireborn, they do have much better melee stats. They did receive a regrowth, and also they have anti-large to fight monsters, so they managed to focus down the Slann Mage Priests of Light, earning back their own value, but other than that, not much can be said about them, as they just got surrounded and dragged down by all these Saurus Spears and Temple Gods. As for the Hero Squad, Imrik doing okay damage. He came in on a horse, so he's not exactly the most expensive unit, while the Life Mage, eating a bunch of Shim's Burning Gaze, dying early, but still managed to do some healing to keep the Pure Main company as well as the Fireborn in the fight for a little longer. As for the Noble, no good targets are present other than the Solar Engines and the Slann Mage Priest of Light, so in the end, not doing too much damage either. As for the Lizardmen, led by Call HR, we have the Saurus Spears. Focused down, they surrounded and dragged down all these Fireborn and Dragon Princes, earning back massive value. While the Temple Gods, being the solid infantry they are, especially the Star Chamber Guardians, they just beat back wave after wave of White Lions, and, well, basically holding the line when the Lord is dead. As the Slann Mage Priest of Light, earning back 1k value, pinning in multiple units with the Net of Amentok, using the Shim's Burning Gaze to snipe out the Mage of Life, and then he himself got sniped by the Fireborn. Mostly there for the supporting element, also using the Blood Statue to finish the Fireborn, as well as the Banishment, ripping apart one of the White Lion units. As for the Bastillodon, they actually spend a lot of their ammo shooting at the Fireborn, which is a terrible unit to pick. That's because Dragon Princes, they have 70% fire resistance, and Solar Engine does fire damage. So despite having magic damage to negate their physical resistance, they are still being mostly mitigated by those fire resistance, rendering their shots really ineffective. In the end, they actually switched their shots onto the White Lions, tearing apart the units, bombarding them, dropping their health down to less than 50%, and rendering that martial prowess useless, taking away one of their most important melee attributes, giving the rest of the units like the Saurus Spears and Temple Gods a much easier time to finish off the High Elf infantry. As for the Pterodon Riders, they did some okay damage, not the most amazing, but the rock drops, especially on the Pure Main company, was absolutely on point. And in the end, tying down, sacrificing their lives to distract all these Lothern Sea God, dragging them into melee and silencing their missile fire was also key in maintaining the remaining forces of the Lizardmen army, allowing buying time for the Lizardmen infantry to catch up with the tied down Lothern Sea God and finish them in melee combat. And yeah, that's basically it for today. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you do, remember to hit the like and subscribe to get notified every time I upload a new video. And if you have any replays that you want to send in and let me showcase, feel free to send them in via Discord or email attachments. I'll be sure to check them out. And yeah, that's basically it for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical Lich, signing out.